Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the fourth webinar in the TU Dublin Hothouse webinar series. Today, we're delighted to have Dr. Aimee Byrne, who is a lecturer in the School of Civil Engineering at TU Dublin, and Dr. Shawna Johnston, who is our Business Development Manager here at Hothouse. So I'm going to open up the floor to Dr. Shawna Johnston, who's going to talk to you about Irish funding and some of the ways that you can help commercialise your research. And then she will hand it over to Dr. Aimee Byrne, who's going to talk to you about SIBRU and some of the projects that they've worked on. So Shawna, thank you for joining us. Aimee, thank you for joining us, and I will let you get started.
Perfect. Thanks for that introduction, Danielle. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. So as Danielle mentioned, I'm just going to spend a few minutes running through some of the commonly used collaborative funding models, and then we'll have some examples from Aimee, who is a researcher in SIBRU, which is one of our research groups, and then some discussion at the end. So, who is TU Dublin? So we are Ireland's top performing knowledge transfer office, and we work to commercialize the intellectual property from our staff and students, as well as support startups. So we'll have a little more detail on that in a moment. So TU Dublin, which is now the City Campus, Tallaght, and Blanchardstown, are part of a larger consortium called the Dublin Regional Innovation Consortium. Along with our partners here, you can see DIAS, IADT, and NCI. This consortium is funded through Enterprise Ireland, with the goal being to increase the impact and innovation within the Dublin region. And so each of our partners do run their own training programs, events, and have their own supports available. So do get in contact with them if you have something specific that you'd like to talk to them about. And there have been several high-profile spin-outs that have come as a direct result of this consortium. So it's done some very good work. Specifically, the impact from our office over the last several years, we have helped to create over 1,700 new high-tech jobs, as well as 41 spin-outs, over 150 license agreements, patents, developing sustainable businesses, and of course, helping our partners get equity investment. So one example would be one of our spin-outs, which is Castus, and they actually just received another grant of 1.6 million euro. And another client of ours is Artematics, and they were just bought out before Christmas for 60 million euros. So they had some really nice parties for Christmas time. So as you can see, there's been a lot of positive impact for the community from the work that we do. So how do we go about this? So at Hothouse, we offer four main pillars of service. So the first is the industry services. So these would be the collaborative industry projects that we'll talk about today. We also support our staff and our students to commercialize their projects and protect their IP. And we also run a student-specific entrepreneurial training program called iCubed. And of course, we support the startups and entrepreneurs in the community. We do run the New Frontiers program, which is an entrepreneurial training program funded through Enterprise Ireland. It's a fantastic program. If you're an entrepreneur or thinking about starting a business, definitely check it out. And we also offer incubation space and supports and investment opportunities for our clients. So here at TU Dublin, we're going to be focusing on the industry pillar of our supports today. So here in Hothouse, we've developed a program called Open Labs. And the purpose of this program is to lower the barrier for engagement with industry, with third levels, and with our researchers. We know it can be a bit daunting if you're in industry and you're not totally sure how to go about interacting with third levels. And so we've really tried to streamline this process and make it as easy as possible. And so for that, we have sort of put together a streamlined process for these 6 main areas here. And these are the areas where we get the most queries from our industry partners. So this would be Sustainable Infrastructure and Buildings Research, or SIBRU, which Aimee will be talking about, the Food Innovation Lab, product prototyping through the Create Lab, and they had a webinar with us a couple of weeks back. We also do data analytics and AI through CEDAR, which is an Enterprise Ireland funded research center, the VR/AR Lab, and Innovative Surface Coatings, which is run through CREST, which is another EI funded research center. And these again are just the most common areas that we work with, but if you have something outside of this area, you know, it's okay, just let us know and we'll help you out. And so say you're an industry partner and you would like to engage with an SME and you don't know how. So the first thing I would suggest is talk to ourselves or a similar knowledge transfer office of one of our partners. We'll have a chat about your project and I'll probably recommend that you apply for an innovation voucher. So this is €5,000 worth of funding from Enterprise Ireland, and it's used to, you know, basically trade for expertise and services with a third level. And so these can be used for any kind of innovation within your company, typically developing new products, services, or processes. It does have to be something innovative. It can't be used for standards, training or anything like that. They're a very straightforward process. You can just quickly apply online. The link is shown there. And typical outputs from a voucher, you know, these are small projects and you typically get something like a technical report, development roadmaps, technical drawings, or maybe a rough prototype. So they're really meant to just be an introduction into working with third levels. And again, they're a very great program for that. You can have up to 3 innovation vouchers in succession. 2 can be fully funded and 1 is 50-50 co-funded with the company. And you do pay the VAT on the €5,000, which you can claim back later if you're set up to do so. And these are, again, quite easy to apply. They're available on an open call now, so you can apply for them anytime. And there is a parallel program in the north run through Invest NI. It's the same idea, £5,000. The only difference is these you can apply for at particular calls throughout the year. The next one starts on September 7th. And these vouchers can be used across the island. So if you're an SME in Dublin and the expertise you happen to need is in Belfast, you know, no problem. You can take your voucher up there and vice versa. So moving on, so perhaps you've had a couple vouchers now and things are going well and you'd like to proceed. The next possible step is to apply for an innovation partnership program through Enterprise Ireland. So these are more in-depth research projects, typically 12 to 18 months, up to €200,000. And Enterprise Ireland funds 80% of the projects and the company funds 20%. And this will get you something closer to market ready. So for example, a demonstrator or a functional prototype. Parallel program called the Fusion program, which is run through Intertrade Ireland. And this lets you actually hire a graduate to work in your company exclusively on your project for 12 to 18 months, and it covers their salary and some supports. This is a really nice idea because it actually lets you have the in-house supports within your company, and it also gives the students some really valuable industry experience. So as I've mentioned, these are really just the most commonly used ones. There's so many funding mechanisms out there. I would be here all day if I were to go through them all. So, you know, your local enterprise office has lots of supports. Definitely check them out. There's EU funding, SFI, DTI. And again, talk to us if you have any questions. The 2 links posted down there are really great tools. If you go to those websites and answer a couple of questions, you can actually get back a list of all of the funding that is suitable for your company and what you're trying to do. So definitely check them out. The slides will be sent out to you later on after the seminar today. And just sort of showing off some of the nice big companies we worked with. So again, we do work with, again, some large high-profile companies, but again, if you're just a small company for one person who's just registered with the CRO, you can work with us too, and we will help you just the same. And with that, that's about my part. So there's various ways to get in touch with us. And again, if you have any questions how any of this works, or you just have an idea and you're not really sure where to go or what to do with us, just drop us a line, and you know, we're always happy to have a chat and help direct you where it will be best suited for you to get the work done that you need. And so that is my portion. So next up, we will talk with Dr. Aimee Byrne, and she is a researcher in SIBRU, which is one of our research groups here in TU Dublin. And she will go through some of their research capabilities and some of the collaborative projects that they're doing with us. So I'll hand it over to Aimee.
Okay, thank you very much, Shawna. I'll just start by introducing myself. I am a lecturer and PI, which means Principal Investigator in the School of Civil and Structural Engineering. PI just means that you can lead projects. My research focuses on heat transfer and building physics, but also sustainable materials, energy efficient buildings, retrofit, structural thermal testing and modeling, and lately I've been moving a bit more into circularity, reusability and modular construction. So today I'm just going to talk about SIBRU, which is our Sustainable Infrastructure and Buildings Research Unit in the School of Civil and Structural Engineering. And then I'm going to go on to describe one of our innovation voucher projects, and that's with Wunderfloor Limited. So at the end of the session, for the Q&A session, we will also have Dr. Sariki here, and he is our Industry Research Manager at SIBRU. And Alan Tracy is also online. I think he might just be able to type in his answers, but he is the founder of Wunderfloor. So at SIBRU, we do anything that could possibly be described as civil or structural engineering, but we also do a whole host more than that. We've broadly split our research into 8 themes, and these range from buildings to soils and water. But today I'm just going to present 4 examples from just 6 of these themes to give you a brief flavor of what we do, and I'm only going to go into any depth on just 4 of our projects. Our industry-based research has been multiplying recently with the addition of Sariki. So if we went into describing all of our projects, we'd be here all day. But if you'd like more information on anything we do, you can visit our website, or you can contact myself or Sariki or our group lead, which is Professor Aidan Duffy. We'll put up all the contact details at the end of these slides. So under the building systems theme, we deal a lot with nearly zero emission buildings or nearly zero energy buildings, as well as low energy buildings. And this would include life cycle assessments, new builds, retrofit, as well as renewable energy. So the project I'm going to highlight here is one on wind forecasting. And this is a graph from a project which developed wind energy value forecasting models. And this used statistical as well as artificial intelligence techniques. So the issue with wind energy is that it can be hard to predict. Hard to predict how much electricity is going to be generated and put on the grid. And that can result in operational difficulties and possible instability. So to address this, new electricity market structures require wind operators to pay for the difference between their next day forecast versus what they can actually produce on the day. So because of that, wind operators therefore are very interested in combining the weather data along with the market setting energy prices. And this project aimed to combine the 2 of those. And it works a lot with several of our leading wind operators in Ireland. On this slide here, I've merged our coastal harbour theme with the water theme, and rivers are also covered under these themes. And a couple of our projects include flood prediction, water quality, and water resource planning. The second image here is the one that I'm going to highlight. These are our coastal structures, and specifically a project which looked at chloride ingress into coastal structures from salty water, which of course can be very damaging to reinforcement in concrete or else to any kind of steel or metal structures by the sea. And what you're seeing here, it might look like 3 briefcases, but it's not. It's 3 concrete slabs which have had sensors embedded in them. We cast these in our structural lab, and then we transferred them up to a pier in Donegal. So this project would have been examining the concrete constituents and profiling those alongside chloride ingress to try and get an idea of the speed and rate at which chloride would ingress into different types of concrete. But more recent work that's followed on from this includes using PV or photovoltaics to power electrochemical chloride extraction. So in this process, what you do is you put an electric charge on the reinforcement within the concrete, a negative electric charge, and you put a positively charged mesh on the surface of the concrete. You power the electricity through it, and you pull out the negatively charged chloride ions. Other work in this area has included cathodic protection, but also we have developed new sensors to detect chloride ingress and the depth of that as well. Our materials theme is one of our cross-cutting themes. This involves development and analysis of materials across all of our disciplines. And again, here's just a snapshot of 4 of our projects. The first one being the extraction of alignate from seaweed, and this is for the pharmaceutical industry. This is used in products such as Gaviscon. We also look at biomaterials, so this would include any kind of plant-based material, including timber or other plant-based materials, and that would be for use within construction and also outside of construction. The last image there is from our Eco Concrete series, and this would include replacing the cement with, say, PFA or GGBS, but it would also include using recycled materials within concrete, as well as having insulating concretes. And the project that I'm going to highlight there is about phase change materials. And this is micro encapsulated phase change material in concrete, which is being load tested in this image. And phase change material is added to increase the thermal mass behavior of a material. So in case you're unaware of what thermal mass is, it essentially is something that helps to moderate indoor temperatures. So say, for instance, concrete has a high thermal mass. It's able to store a lot of heat energy. It slowly heats up during the day and it slowly cools during the night. So it acts like a large heat store for you. And the way that phase change materials behave is they release or absorb a large amount of heat energy when they change from one phase to another. So when they're melting or when they're solidifying. And the ideal phase change materials for use in buildings will change phase exactly at the temperature at which human comfort changes from being comfortable to being too hot or too cold. So within the range of 19 to 24 degrees for space cooling would be ideal. And that's what this project is focused on. And they used microencapsulated phase change material products embedded within their self-compacting concrete to make panels that could be tested. So the analysis side of this project would include simulations, lab testing, and on-site testing using sample test huts. This project was in collaboration with TechREIT and UCD with one of our lecturers. Within the modelling and simulation theme then, again, this is one of our cross-cutting themes. We probably would do some degree of modelling and simulation in at least half of our projects. Examples would include finite element, finite volume, and computational fluid dynamics. We've also bought a whole series of software and we use it with our undergraduates too. But analysing large-scale data is also covered under this theme, as is BIM. The first example shown here is dynamic heat transfer through a cavity block wall. This is part of one of my PhD students' 4-year projects, which is near the end now. And we're looking at optimizing insulation for Irish buildings and for Irish weather. So what you see here is heat transfer through the solid of the cavity block wall only. But we're also modeling conjugate heat transfer through the system, which means we're also looking at heat transfer through the cavities inside the cavity blocks, the air either side of the walls, as well as all the surfaces. So we're looking at conduction, convection, and radiation, which just adds an extra layer of complexity. But we're also looking at it dynamically. So we're looking at how the internal environment changes throughout the day, whether it's being heated or cooled, and we're looking at the outdoor weather conditions. So we're inputting all of that dynamic data, and we're also looking at 3 phases of heat transfer. Other facets of this project include the heating degree day method and life cycle methods to get payback periods for getting insulation retrofitted. And what this approach is we look at the relationship between outdoor temperature and the point at which people turn on their heating system, depending on the type of house they have. So if they had a 1930s uninsulated house, the relationship with when it gets below, say, 15 degrees outside, that's when people start to turn on their heating system. And that's how we get heating degree day. We also use statistical and lab-based validation approaches to determine the reliability or to ensure the reliability of the outcomes. Under our structural theme, we host a whole suite of structural tests for standard and non-standard materials. We have a lab brochure listing all of our equipment. So if you wanted to know if we could do a test, you can simply drop us a line and we can tell you pretty quickly. I've just shown an image on the left of one of our 2 load-bearing rigs or load rigs. This can apply an enormous load to your structure. So this would be beams, columns, walls, slabs. We can record movement, failure data, and we can record all of this using our high-speed data acquisition systems, one of which is shown in the second image. We again have a whole suite of sensors that you can hook up to this and record your data. We can also do mobile testing. So we can do external mobile testing, meaning we can look at, say, movement within a structure. And just the example shown here is our portable strain indicator units. And the fourth image then shows how we can monitor the health of a structure without, drilling anything into it. We can determine the level of voids or defects that might be internally within the structure. This is the Pundit test machine, and it detects voids or defects within the concrete. And just a last word on themes that we didn't go through here. There's the transport theme. We'll have a new transport engineer starting with us this year, so we'll see what new interesting expertise they bring. And we also have a soils and geotech lecturer who started a year and a half ago with us, and he's currently working on rammed earth. So I'm going to show you 3 examples of relationships we have with industry partners so that you can get an idea of the ways in which you can become involved with research or knowledge providers such as ourselves. I'm going to show you our relationship with McGrath Quarries, which went from one small project to another. Our relationship with CRH, which went from a small project to a much larger one this year. And our relationship with the ESB, which is more of a 2-way data sharing, research informing, and expertise and knowledge sharing style relationship. So at McGrath Quarries, we completed an Enterprise Ireland Innovation Partnership feasibility study back in 2017 for €9,000. And this looked into assessing the use of limestone in their self-leveling floor screeds. And then more recently in 2020, we then have started an Enterprise Ireland Innovation Voucher. And this explores drying conditions and how that relates to drying times of their screeds. Cement Roadstone Holdings is the parent company to Irish Cement and Roadstone. And the first project you see listed there is one of the first projects I worked on when I joined TU Dublin back in 2014. And this was examining the amount of carbon sequestered by masonry blocks while they were still in Roadstone's production yard. And we wanted to see if we could reduce the amount of carbon associated with the product, particularly at the manufacturing life stage of the life cycle. It was a short enough project, but the outputs from it went right up until 2017. We had outputs including conference paper, journal paper, and also a master's project with Irish Cement, Matest Ireland, and Leeds University, which began in 2017. Much more recently, at the end of 2019, then we began an Enterprise Ireland Innovation Partnership project with Roadstone. And this is looking at developing freeze-thaw durability criteria for masonry blocks again. And you can see how much greater the funding is. This goes up to €200,000. This one was 106,358. And the company, of course, as Shawna mentioned, needs to provide 20% of that cost. Within the proposal for innovation partnerships, you need to show that this is something that will be beneficial to both you and the company. And here's the timeline for our relationship with ESB, which began back in 2007. This is when they were sharing some data with us for the writing of new research projects as well as existing research projects. Their input has also influenced the design of research proposals for URCSEP PhD funding in 2009 and a postdoctoral SFI MARI project, which started this year and will go on to 2022. We've also had them in to present to our students, and they've worked with us on final year projects and master's projects. So for companies that are interested in getting involved with third level but don't have an idea where they want to go with innovation vouchers or any particular research venture, you can always get in contact and see how you might be able to fit in with final year projects or master's projects. The students are always delighted to work on real world problems. We love having real world problems to get them work ready, but also just makes things interesting, and it creates that relationship between us and our industry partners for the future. So now I'm just going to move on to an innovation voucher partnership that we have, or an innovation voucher project that we currently have going with Wunderfloor Limited. I'm going to detail the project a little bit, but mainly I'm going to just focus on what you might find useful if you're considering getting an innovation voucher or considering being involved as the knowledge provider. So Alan Tracy, who should be here today, or is there somewhere today? He's the head of engineering at 3, and he decided to give that up when he got a great idea that he wanted to pursue. And he wanted to put all of his efforts and time into getting it off the ground. What he wanted to do was make a modular heating system that would go over the floor or over your wall and would click into place like a series of tiles. And these tiles could be clicked together, placed down, clicked back up, and removed and brought with you to your next location. He also wanted them to be able to fit into any kind of room shape. So before he came to us, he got ahead in the process in the ways that he could. He leaned on friends and associates with expertise that he needed and got some advice from other friends with startups. He also used his local enterprise office for guidance, and he paid out of pocket for IP through a consultancy. He had some friends draw up some CAD images, and he took this along with aluminium sheets to a laser cutting company and cut out a prototype that you see here. He also paid for the circuit boards to be made up. These are printed circuit boards or PCBs, and you'll see the four blue PCBs in the second image there. So the first image is the base plate made of aluminium and surrounding support around the edges and a bit of support in the middle. These are the aluminium connectors that are meant to connect the modules together. These are the 4 PCBs, and these connect together and up to an off-the-shelf heater mat. And then this is the top plate, and your heater mat is directly underneath that. He also knew how he wanted these to fit together. So he wanted to form a single circuit. So he has one male electrical connector and 3 female connector sides. And in this way, you can rotate the modules so that it snakes around the connection in series to fit any room shape. But now he was stuck. He needed to go from a very heavy aluminium system that was quite expensive. It was uninsulated, so it wasn't efficient at all for delivering heat. And he wanted it to instead be lightweight, easy to build with readily available materials. He also wanted the materials to form a slim profile and as efficiently as possible deliver the heat to the room. So he decided to get an innovation voucher to allow for some material exploration. Once he had his voucher, he went to his local enterprise office, who put him in contact with Shawna in Hothouse. And then she contacted Sariki, and he contacted me as a best fit for the project. So once we were identified and we agreed to take it on, or at least discuss it, we met with Alan a few times and talked through the issue, saw what he wanted to do with the project, told him, what was possible and what wasn't. And then we wrote up an agreement for Alan to sign. We did some other admin in the background, and last thing is we invoiced Alan for the VAT. So the VAT isn't covered by the innovation voucher, that's covered by the company. That's how Alan went about it, but you can also as a company, go directly to the knowledge provider. So you can come directly to us and we can help you through the process. Okay, so just some brief details on what was covered by our Innovation Voucher project. Like I said, Alan came to us with a fully aluminium system that you see on the left, plus the electronics. And we wanted to essentially go from that to more of what you see on the right. So going from the top, then we have a top plate which has your tile on it. That could be a replaceable tile surface, so it could be a tile, a carpet, vinyl, whatever you want it to be. And just directly underneath that, we need to have something that's highly conductive. So we want the heat to very easily move from the heater mat up into the room space. Beneath the heater mat, then we want something as insulating as possible. And either beneath that or within that, we need the structural support. And then the last layer at the bottom, we have the base plate. And again, we want this to be as thermally conductive as possible because we want the electronics to remain cool. We don't want them to heat up the heater mat, and the floor can provide a good cooling system for the electronics. But with this system, we also wanted to be able to take weight. We needed to take its own weight, the weight of people jumping or something dropping on it. It also needs to be quite durable so that you can click them apart, remove them, store them for periods of time, move them into a new house and click them back in place again. We've also been talking about sealing and moisture getting in, as well as differential movement between panels. So these are all things that need to get worked out along the way. We want the system to be as efficient as possible for heat delivery. So we want all of our heat moving upwards and none of our heat moving downwards into the floor. Based on our initial discussions, we wrote up an agreement which included our deliverables. And these include a report on materials, purchasing, designing and building of a rough prototype backing. And then last step, deciding on a way forward after the innovation voucher. So we're about here at this stage. We're going back and forth a bit between deliverable 1 and 2. And we're just assessing different options for purchasing material samples. So right now we're weighing up the options for insulation. Our options being we could go with more of a solid load-bearing insulation. These tend to be thicker. We also have ultra-thin insulations that we can look at, but these tend to be vacuum-based or air-containing, so they can't be perforated or cut. They also can't be load-bearing in any way. So we need more of a more structural system in addition to that, if we go with that option. And then the third option is having a sprayed or injected foam solution. And again, this wouldn't be load bearing. Projects like these typically take between 3 and 6 months. And then once we've completed all of our deliverables here, we're going to be signing the voucher, and so will Alan in Wunderfloor. And then we'll be attaching our claim form and sending back to Enterprise Ireland. So I just want to finish up with some notes around the innovation voucher itself. The website is really excellent. That's the link to it there, but you can just Google innovation voucher and Enterprise Ireland and you'll get there that way. I definitely recommend the frequently asked questions section on the page, as well as ineligible and eligible projects. And that again can all be linked to from that page. As Shawna mentioned, they only support innovations, so this project would have fit under the new product category. And what kind of outputs you can expect from a project like this? So this is an academic research project. This isn't, a 2-day turnaround and a finished commercial product at the end. It's more an exploration and more of a slow process than you would with a company that purely does product development. So the kind of outputs you might expect, we would have had reports, and rough prototype would have been what we would have delivered here. But you also could be drawings, technical specifications, specific analysis. I have another project at the moment where it's just a series of tests and then a report at the end. So I'll welcome now Dr. Sariki, and Alan should be somewhere there as well, from Wunderfloor, and we'll all be available here to answer questions along with Shawna. But also please do contact myself or Sariki if you have any queries about SIBRU, or if you want to see how you can get involved with us.
Thank you for that, Amy. We are delighted that you could join us, and great presentation, very interesting. We have a couple of questions here for yourself and Shawna, so if you have time, we'd love for you to answer them. And the first one is actually for Shawna, and they're wondering, how did they apply for a voucher, Shawna?
Okay, so it's quite straightforward. If you go to the Enterprise Ireland website and just search for Innovation Voucher, there's a link right in there and you can just apply online. Alternatively, I know Danielle's going to be sending out the slides after, and the link was just on the slide where I talked about the vouchers. So they're quite straightforward. It's about a one-page application. It's nothing that in-depth. So
they're also asking, what can the voucher be used for? Can they use it for market research, as they have an idea that they'd like to get more information on?
They can be used for market research in some cases. I would say just drop me a line and we can discuss specifically what you're interested in more detail.
The next one is, they haven't started a business yet, but they're thinking about starting one. What kind of funding, or can they get funding?
For just starting up a business, or for the vouchers specifically?
It doesn't specify, it just says
Okay.
that they're looking for a business.
Okay, so.
Or sorry, apologies, they're about to start a business.
No problem. So for an innovation voucher, you do need to be a registered company. So you need your CRO number, and then you can get the voucher. If you haven't started yet and you're looking for supports, I would suggest checking out the local enterprise office, as they'll have more kind of relevant things for that stage of your company.
The next questions are for Amy. So Amy, they're wondering, what software do you use in your modeling and simulation? Oh, sorry, there's a couple of questions in this one. Do you use it for company research? Is it available under the funding for the innovation voucher? So I suppose the first question is, what software do you use, maybe?
Well, the two images that I put up there, the first one was COMSOL Multiphysics and the second one was ANSYS. The first one was purchase software. I think the COMSOL suite that we have cost about 3,000 and something, so it's pretty expensive depending on what you're purchasing it for. So if it's for commercial reasons, it has a different price tag. For ANSYS, we use that for our undergraduates and our postgraduates. I use it myself just for messing around sometimes as well. So that's quite widely available, and actually if you have a student account, you can download that yourself and just use it with your student email address. As far as whether it's available for commercial use, I'm not sure about that. I'm sure there are different licenses that you can purchase, whether it be a student version versus a licensed version for commercial reasons.
I think that they're wondering, can they use it under the funding? So can they do research under the innovation voucher using that modeling simulation package, maybe? Is that something you've done before?
It's not something I've done before. I mean, those projects would be research projects, but they wouldn't be funded under Enterprise Ireland funding, and they wouldn't be a commercially aimed project. So I'm not entirely sure. It's certainly the innovation voucher wouldn't cover purchasing simulation software for them, if that's what they wanted to know. We can certainly do thermal testing in our labs if it's something that could be covered in that way. We can also do structural testing in our labs that wouldn't involve simulation, but would achieve the same thing. So I'm not entirely sure if the innovation voucher would, if the licenses would allow the innovation voucher be used with it.
Okay, perfect. They're wondering, do you have other examples of projects with companies that SIBRU have worked on?
All of those examples that I showed would have been SIBRU projects.
They're company projects, are they?
Well, yeah. So there was a TechREIT one. That's the phase change material one. The CRH was with us. The ESB projects. Yeah, any company that I mentioned at all would have all been SIBRU collaborative projects.
Perfect. And then they're wondering how long did the innovation voucher application process take for Alan with SIBRU?
The process of applying for it, is it?
It doesn't specify. I presume maybe they mean how long from when they got one to how you're in it now.
Starting.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, so I think there are 3 calls a year for the €5,000 voucher. Isn't that right?
No, those ones are on an open call now. So.
Oh, is that just okay?
Yeah, so the Enterprise Ireland ones are on an open call. So I know Alan was referred to us from the local enterprise office. He already had his voucher. And I think within a couple of weeks, we'd met with you for some of the initial meetings.
Yeah.
And got the project set up. And I mean, obviously then COVID hit and we all kind of sat around for a while. But it wasn't too long between, Alan actually getting his voucher and being connected with the right group and having a project plan ready. So.
Okay, we have another question. They are saying, is there a fund covering publishing an open source book? Do you know?
I don't know off the top of my head. Again, if you send me an email, we can look around, and some of those links for, I think it was the supporting SMEs.gov.ie would probably have some more information in there, but feel free to just email me and we can have a chat about that.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions. Would you or Amy like to say anything else before we sign off, or would anybody else like to post any more questions before we say thank you to Shawna and Amy? No?
Nope, I think I'm good.
If anyone had any questions, to get in touch with us. These slides are available, aren't they, afterwards? So all the information for contacting us and checking our websites are all there.
Perfect. Well, I will say thank you to you and Shawna for joining us, and to the attendees, thank you again for joining us for our 4th seminar series. We will have another one coming up in a couple of weeks, and information will be published through the different websites and social media. Thank you for joining us, and if you want to follow up afterwards, please feel free to email us. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.